Of course, I make a video about Creoles and there are more arguments, so let's take a look. Actually, I want to start with this one down here. Creoles aren't even real. Yes, they are, so let's move on. The grammar and vocabulary of Middle English and Old English are so different that if English people weren't white, it wouldn't be considered a Creole. No, Creoles are not defined as just a language that has changed a lot, especially when you had Norman upper class speaking a different language. Again, just having an upper class that speaks a different language doesn't mean it's Creole. For some reason, Creoles only exist for brown and black people. That's not necessarily true, but there is a good reason for it. It's called colonization. Many contact languages exist in Europe but aren't called Creoles because not all contact languages are Creoles. There are contact languages all over the world that aren't called Creoles. There was a trade language in the Mediterranean called Sabir with an R, or the lingua franca, yet they slip under the radar. They don't. You're literally talking about it right now. It's a Creole language. Sabir was spoken in the Mediterranean for centuries. Developed because primarily Portuguese were trading with people who didn't speak Portuguese. They tried to learn it, but they only learned a few words and developed a pidgin based on Portuguese. And then the various peoples from across the Mediterranean filled in the rest to get more communication with their native languages. That's a Creole. It's a Creole that white people spoke. And there's white people in America who speak Louisiana Creole.
Moi, t'es venu ici une demi-mille de la maison, là, pour jouer mon frère Sid sur le bayou Tex.
Part of what defines Louisiana Creole as being different from French or Haitian Creole is the influence of white English-speaking immigrants. And look, I get the sentiment. White people, Europeans, want their language to be a cut above, right? But first of all, Creoles are just as valid, natural, and proper as any other language. But also the very concept of a Creole language is heavily derived from colonization. So it makes sense that usually it was the people that were colonized that speak Creoles, because that's where that concept comes from. And to go back to this comment on the bottom, they just reflect a colonial attitude towards language, again, because they were formed by colonization. A Creole doesn't have to come from a pidgin. Then what is the criteria? Just that it borrows words from another language or that it's changed due to contact? In that case, you're just describing every language ever. And look, you can find linguists that disagree with me. I'm not saying I speak for everyone. I'm not saying you can't have these arguments, but I am saying none of the arguments I received in my comments are at all compelling or convincing. If your criteria for a Creole is that it's changed a lot, well, guess what? Literally every language changes all the time. Contact languages and lingua francas can change because of the influence of all the different people that speak it. That doesn't make it a Creole. If a Creole isn't a language that developed from a pidgin, then what do you call a language that did develop from a pidgin? You just don't have a word for them? You're just going to overlook them now and say they're just the same as everything else? No, they have really cool, interesting, unique origins. And English did not have that. For example, if you look at the Mariana Islands where they speak Chamorro, which is a Creole based on Spanish and the indigenous language, if they didn't have that pidgin from first contact, what would they be speaking? They'd still be speaking the indigenous language. Chamorro wouldn't exist. If English didn't have contact with the Normans, what would they speak? They'd still be speaking English. Yeah, it wouldn't be the same as today, but they'd still be speaking English. First contact, pidgin, Creole. That's how it works. English didn't do that.